It's a beautiful Thursday morning in Lagos. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. It appears we won't be hearing about the Electoral Act Amendment Bill for a while. The Senate has gone the way of the House of Reps, and they did say yesterday that they would be able to do anything without the lower chamber. So we're probably going to wait till when they reconvene. But the body language is clear that it's not going to be as exciting as we thought it would be. If you get what I'm talking about. All right, it's less than 2 days to Christmas, and it's about celebration, and food is the big deal. There's a very troubling report coming from the African Union Commission, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, as well as the UN Economic Commission for Africa. And the fact is that we're told the number of hungry people in Africa would continue to rise, except African countries hit the call for agri-food systems transformation. We're told that hunger in Africa has now worsened substantially since 2013 and even experienced as much deterioration between 2019 and 2020. Now, the report is advising countries to begin to engage in and leverage the outcomes of the United Nations Food System Summit, the Nutrition for Growth Summit, and the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, the COP26. Now, let me break it down for you. The digital report further stressed that in 2020, about 281.6 million Africans were undernourished. And that's an increase of 89.1 million over what we had in 2014. We're taking a look at what is responsible for the rise in the number of hungry people in Africa. Of course, what that means is that many people are not going to have a dirty December like we talk about in this part of the world. Damilola Balogun is a youth development advocate who joins me live from the United Kingdom. And I also have from Lagos, Desmond Majekodunmi. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for finding time to come. Let's begin with Damilola. How do you react to this report, particularly when we begin to look at the implication of this on young Africans?
For having me here. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much for having me live here. So, without wasting time on addressing this your question, I mean, it's something that is of huge problems, but of course, it's just one of those major things we need to think forward in terms of finding good and practicable solutions in solving, especially that we're in a decade of action by the United Nations. And so it is important that young people need to begin to realize that they need to start bringing their ideas and solutions to life to tackle a lot of problems, which actually also includes this. So for me, it's a wake-up call, and then it means that we have to begin to work as African youth.
It perhaps also would call for attention to, I don't think we have Dam in there, but we'll get back to Damilola in a short while. Let me bring in Mr. Majekodunmi on this one. I'd like us to begin by identifying precisely what are the causative factors in this regard. A few of them have been highlighted in this report. We're talking about conflict, which is a challenge, particularly the farmers' header challenge that we have in this part. They talked about climate change, which I'd love you to begin with. How devastating is, the cliche climate change as regards food production and its impact on the rise in hungry people here in Nigeria?
How devastating is the cliche climate change? But yeah,
I can hardly
hear
the
whole climate change
issue.
The whole climate change issue is really exacerbating things. Obviously, because if you're not going to get any rain, or you're going to get the whole climate issue. The whole climate change issue is if you're going to have aberrations in the rainfall pattern, then it's obviously going to affect your possibility of growing food. And this is exactly what's happening. In my own particular farm, I had a few mango trees, and because this year the August break came in June, and the rains didn't come back till almost late September. we've got no fruit from the mango trees. And this is really a very, very dangerous situation that we're facing. And we need to tackle it very, very fast and very, very effectively. Otherwise, the kind of food shortages we're having now will be very, very small in comparison to what we're going to have in the future. Apart from that, the climate change is also driving in the desert. It's exacerbating desertification, Unfortunately, cows have not adapted to eating sand, They eat grass. And when you have a desert moving in and taking over where your grass will grow, then obviously you won't be able to take care of your flocks. So it's an impending disaster, and we really got to handle it very, very effectively. We're not paying nearly enough attention to it. And if we don't pay the attention quickly enough, it'll get totally out of hand, and we won't be able to stop the processes. This is exactly what the United Nations is telling us. They've declared a code red emergency for the environment. I'm sure Damilola will agree fully, because he's been where it's been coming through.
But let me stay with you for a minute, Mr. Majekodunmi. What kind of precise adjustment do you expect from government in this regard, particularly when you look at the fact that we still embraced pastoralists, even at a time where a lot of modern technology is now being adopted to adjust with the climate realities?
I know we got a whole lot of problems. And, some people are thinking, oh, well, we'll be able to handle it this way. This is a code red emergency. It's like, if you're in your house and you're seeing a whole lot of smoke coming from the ceiling, it's no longer, well, okay, we'll just adjust this here. No, it's an emergency. You better find out what's causing the smoke, and you better put out that cause of the smoke, and also be ready to put out the fire in case the smoke transits into fire. That's how serious the situation is. And government need to take it far, far more seriously. I'm sorry to say, but in 2019, our president was in front of the United Nations, and he promised, okay, we're going to plant 25 million trees, which is not nearly enough, but it's a good step. And since then, we've only planted about 5 or 6 million. Again, this year, he was at the COP conference with the United Nations and all the other world leaders and made some very strong promises. And we're really, really hoping that he will stick to those promises. Because if he doesn't, and if he doesn't activate the processes to address this situation, and part of it is, as you said, getting the cows and all the ranching thing far, far, far better organized, and then also the green wall of the desert. We've been talking about this for a couple of decades. Can you imagine? And then we spearheaded it again quite recently when the whole thing fell apart over 12, 15 years ago. We spearheaded it. Nigeria was leading. Green wall of the desert. We're going to put a massive barrier of trees across the desert zone. And those trees are going to give economic benefits to a lot of people because there'll be fruit trees and all other types of trees. And they're going to hold back the desert. And what's happening? Nigeria is one of the places where the whole Green Wall project is mainly defaulted. So this can't continue. It cannot continue. And it's a very serious matter. And they should take it, the leadership should take this very seriously, because my dear brother and my dear sisters who might be listening, there's one reality about life which we must accept. And that is, whatsoever you sow, you reap it. If you plant cassava, Damola, let me ask my brother there, my young brother, if you plant cassava, are you going to harvest cocoyam?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I love the way he put the absolutely not. It's a law of life, a law of nature. It's actually expressed in science as Newton's third law of action. For every action, there's a reaction. So the leadership are in a very precarious position, because if they don't take the right decisions and they don't activate those decisions, it's going to hit back on them particularly, but also on us. And we're not going to allow them to take the wrong decisions. We're a democratic nation, and young people like Damola are going to seize the time and seize the power, because the power belongs to the people and as young people.
Let me get back to Damilola in the United Kingdom. This report is advising African countries to engage and leverage on certain outcomes. The idea is that perhaps they're given the, the suggestion that there's already a template to tackle challenges like these. They're making reference to outcomes from the UN Food System Summit, even the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference. Walk us through what you consider to be the global best or global standard practice to respond in situations like this.
Thank you very much for this question. Also, I would like to give my submission based on the fact that I also attend COP26 this year in United Kingdom rather. And so to me, this was like the first time of attending COP26 and seeing how everything goes, seeing how the whole negotiation went through was something that I was able to clearly understand that, I mean, we all have a lot of work to do. And so just to answer this question, I mean, the templates that we can emulate is, first of all, begin to understand that there's different ways to handling this. There is an aspect of advocacy, there is an aspect of technological innovation, which leads to infrastructural development, as well as there is an aspect of research and policy, and then there's an aspect of conversation where people talk about all of these problems. So I think a major template is, as it is right now, I understand that there was a climate change bill that was signed into law by the Nigerian president in November, yes. So in October, and then in COP26, he also mentioned the fact that he pledged Nigeria to net zero by 2060. That means it just transitioned to a clean and affordable energy. And so I feel like the major template to achieving this thing is to make sure that all of these words, all of these commitments transform into real life policies. I mean, of recent as well, Nigeria sent an update of the National Determined Contributions, the NDCs. And reading through this report, there were great ideas. For the first time, Nigeria is beginning to look into the waste management as to how it can actually help to address the issue of climate change through the NDCs. And so all of these things are good ideas, they're good policies, they're good text, but they really don't make sense if they are not put into action. And so all of these things, whatever templates, whatever ways we intend to look at it, we need to make sure that all of these things we are putting into documents comes into action. And this involves all stakeholders in terms of public sector, the private sector, young people in marginalized area, everybody coming together and making sure that action is being taken, no matter how small it is the right way to go.
How much help do you think that African countries are getting from richer countries? You attended COP26 in 2009. Richer countries had pledged some $100 billion. But most countries would tell you that not much of the money, the countries didn't see the money on the ground, even though we're told that between 70 and 80% of that figure had been delivered. How much collaboration is happening, globally, to ensure, for instance, we're looking at issues of renewable energy investments, which is, as we speak, so far been very slow in this part of the world?
Very much for that question. And so it's always a general saying that the global south is less responsible for climate for CO2 emission, and then the global north is the major pollutant, and so therefore the global north should then push towards this investment. And I can remember the $100 billion agreement, finance agreement came across started in the Paris Agreement of 2015. And so for me, it feels like it makes us less. I think at this point we need to be very much self-reliant. We need to work together as a continent, regardless of any funding we're expecting from any part of the world. We need to begin to take action. And I'll give an example. I, as a young person, 24 years old, I recently started a technological innovation for local farmers in Lagos State, Nigeria. And so this was a solar irrigation project for farmers. And so because we noticed that as young people that we need to begin to take action. And so like I said again, action. The money we are waiting for, the pledge of the money, it doesn't get to us. If it doesn't get, we just have to work. We need to proceed. And so in handling this, we just need to work, and then within the little space we have, as young people, as major stakeholders, as we have, just like the one I was talking about the solar irrigation projects in Lagos. As a young person, I've been able to help farmers in Lagos State to adopt the solar irrigation projects, which actually helps address the issue of SDG 7, clean and affordable energy, as well as tackling the issue of climate action. So in all, whether we're expecting the $100 billion pledge that is supposed to come or not, we need to just take action and we need to move.
How much collaboration did you enjoy with your solar irrigation project, particularly with stakeholders back at home?
All right. I think, yeah, it's more of an idea, because what we intend to do really is because we notice that a lot of farmers within this part of the world really don't have access to funding and don't have access to sophisticated technology in pushing this. And so majorly the support we had were not as huge as we have expected, but regardless, we're still able to push through our strategic partnership to make sure that this works out. And the results today I speak to you is really awesome, because we have some of these farmers already saying they're able to double their farm produce within a shorter period of time, and they're spending less on generator, which is not only environmentally unfriendly, but is also very costly. So it's a viable solution, and it's something that is really working. And so if we're able to merge forces with other stakeholders, private sector, government, and everybody coming together, I mean, majority of those problems will be addressed, because the real people that are really impacted are the people within the local level. And if we're able to solve the local problems, we are able to then know we are on the good path to national development, continental development, as well as global development.
Absolutely. We'll get back to Nigeria's commitment to carbon emission in a short while. But Mr. Majekodunmi, just a few days ago, I learned on the news that some West African farmers had come to Nigeria to understudy what they call Nigeria's success in rice farming. Does this in any way contradict the reports we're talking about here?
No, it's very credible. There's some very good movements going on in our country. In fact, Nigeria has always been one of the leading innovators in tropical agriculture. Remember, it's the base for the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, which has been in Ibadan for decades. Again, this awful aberrations in government interfered with that. I remember dealing with the IITA many years ago to set up my own farm here in Lekki, and they were complaining. The scientists there, top research scientists, they had developed some wonderful cultivars of cassava that were disease resistant and other types of great crops. And then they handed them over to the government agric agency, the seeds for multiplication. And these seeds went rotten in their storeroom. And this was like a repeating problem over and over again. They were really frustrated with this horrendous level of corruption that was pervading the system at that time. And unfortunately, we're still seeing quite a bit of it in this time now. Having said that, in all fairness, there are some very good people in some of the agricultural agencies in Nigeria, like in Lagos, the present Commissioner for Agriculture, and what they are pushing with Agripreneur scheme and giving people all kinds of skills and so on. In fact, in relation to the rice, Lagos has built a massive rice mill, and they have some arrangements with one or two of the state governments to be supplying paddy to them, which is very commendable. However, they need to tap into what people like Damilola are doing as well, because this is the real grassroots farming. And from what I can see, he's into sustainable farming. He's into farming that is harmonious, that is based probably, I'm very sure, on organic principles. I don't even need to ask him. I'm sure he's not into pouring all kinds of chemicals into the soil over there. And what he's doing with his irrigation system, it should be backed and it should be promoted massively. Solar irrigation for farming, especially when we're going to be having water shortages, is the perfect option. So there needs to be a lot more from government, and they need to now take it very, very seriously. We don't want to hear any iota of corruption when it comes to agriculture and environment.
Let me take you back to COP26, Mr. Majekodunmi. We had President Buhari talk about Nigeria's commitment to achieving net zero by the year 2060. However, he underlined the importance of using gas as a transition fuel. And that's a very important topic, particularly when you consider what appears to be gas fast becoming some sort of a gold as we speak right now.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation we found ourselves in. Again, it's so difficult for us because of the massive corruption and just total misuse of resources in days gone by. The amount of money that this country has been able to accrue by being one of the major producers and sellers of fossil fuel over the decades and decades. If that money had just been slightly judiciously invested, like a country like Norway, for instance, if Norway stopped receiving a cent from oil tomorrow, they would be fine because they have such a massive sovereign wealth fund. They've been investing their money all over the world from their oil. Unfortunately, our leaders did not see and it fits that our money should have been well invested. So we don't have much to fall back on, and we've been relying on this fossil fuel. But believe you me, the days of fossil fuel are very, very soon going to be over. The demand for fossil fuel is going to stop rapidly because, sadly, it's poisonous. If I put a generator in your room, in your studio now, and spark the generator, you're not going to stay there, because it's going to kill you. And that's what happens. Every year between 4 to 7 million people die because of the toxic fumes that come out of burning this fossil fuel. So gas as a transitory fuel, if it's very, very responsibly extracted and transmitted, because gas is also quite a dangerous product, it can work. It can work for a while. But again, the demand, because the young people all over the world, people of Damilola's age, we've tended to sort of look down on them, whereas, they have resources of knowledge that are unparalleled. That, all they got to do is just pick up the smartphone. Hey, Google, what's the most popular TV station in Nigeria? Boom, and TVC, okay, all right, whatever. Yeah, but they have the knowledge, and the young people are coming together all over the world and saying, no, enough is enough. This is our future. This is our very future that is at stake, that's hanging in the balance, because you old guys can't make the necessary changes in time. So even gas, it's not going to last very long. They're soon going to say, no, we're not allowing any of these poisons to be emitted into the atmosphere anymore, because we've pushed it far too far, and we don't want to reach that point of no return, which is coming in about 10 years max. 10 years max, the point of no return. That is the point whereby you can no longer stop the process because other processes have kicked in from the ice caps, from the forests. Instead of forests being sequesters of CO2, they'll now be emitting the CO2 and other areas like the mangroves. Yeah, so we got to do the right thing quickly.
Gentlemen, let's take a call from Abia State. Mazu Korafa has called in. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Nifemi. Good morning, our guests on Sky. You see, food security in Nigeria and other African countries are achievable. But today, we still insist on crude ways of farming or cultivating. What does it take us to balance our farm work? Married dry season farming and married rainy season farming together. But today, we concentrate only on rainy season farming. Look, there are seasonal products, which if we embark on dry season farming, and this farming, we have all this is 247. Look at today in the market, a bag of rice, let's keep that one aside. Onions, which is good, it boosts our immunity to fight COVID-19. Onions is still at something thousand naira per bag. Look at our fishing production, very expensive to run. All this organic food not properly done. zigzag way of farming, which is not healthy. I call on Nigerians who are into all these farm products, concentrate on a particular one that will have cooperative advantage and do it very well. Agric money, what happened to it? Political farmers collecting all this agric money. Today we have what we call political farmers. They go and collect this money from central bank. They don't even give it to the rightful owners. That is why you see everything in the market very expensive. Christmas season is just less than 24 hours or 28 hours to go. See how expensive things are. You ask yourself, must it be so? No. There is no village in Nigeria that you don't have all this vegetation very well to farm. Around the Chuku, you have Ogo, that's pumpkin, name them. But what will happen? People concentrate on all these things. All this made. I was reading one of these newspapers. I said, why is it that children of 3 years, 2 years, they obese? Because their parents feed them with all this yamayama food at prime age. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to everybody and to all our listeners. God bless all of us.
Thank you so much for your contribution. One thing is certain, that there has to be a technological upgrade in the mode of farming. For instance, there's hydroponics, farming without soil. Let me take your last comment, Damilola, as we wrap up this segment. There are some African solar projects on the horizon, one of which is yours that you've shared with us. But the infrastructure for other clean energy sources, for instance, like hydrogen, remain very underdeveloped. Talk to us about how and why Africa must embrace these alternatives in the face of daunting challenges like food insecurity.
All right. Thank you very much. That's a very wonderful question. So, as we all know, this is a decade of action. It's a decade to leave no one behind, and it's something that it is important that we begin to bring close to us, because it's the new way of life. And most times this still boils down to most of the things I say. Every person, if you look at Africa, for example, right now, more than 60% of Africa's population are largely young people. And so youth generally have the power, the strength to innovate, and you see them always striving for new encounters and new challenges. So in as much as we need to work in line with the right technology and be able to address a lot of these problems, starting from the grassroots level to the national level and to the continental level, we need to involve young people. Young people need to be empowered. I know a lot of young people that are doing agriculture in Nigeria, but many of them still don't find it really easy. So as we need access to funding, we need access generally to make sure that technology really supports the work we do. And so generally, we need to just work on young people to actually push for this.
Let's take a final call on this segment. Judge has called in from Ikeja. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Nifemi. Can you hear me, please?
Very clearly. Please go ahead.
All right. I am just wondering why we can be talking about food security when there is no security in the land for farming. We are predominantly practicing the rotational bush fallow system, where farmers farm in one location, the next season they move to another location where they consider to be more fertile. There is no industrialization in the sector. There is no technology available to more than 90% of the farming population. So we can't be talking about food security when those people in the majority have nowhere to farm. The average person right now all over the country, they find it difficult to go to their farms. Either their farms are attacked or they are killed when they are farming. In the north now, it's almost absent. I think that is the one we should address first before we can talk about achieving food security.
Thank you very much, Judge, for that contribution. Very incisive, and it's a key one. Hopefully the stakeholders are listening. Gentlemen, we have to go now. Desmond Majekodunmi, environmentalist, joins us from Lagos. Damilola Balogun, youth development advocate, live with us from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts this morning.